Hi everyone, welcome to Chess Comic, where we learn, laugh, and checkmate. For today's video, we're going to learn the Scholar's Mate, or the famous 4-move checkmate. So if you guys are ready, let's start. Before I show you the moves, let me just explain to you quickly how the Scholar's Mate works. So White's target is the f7 pawn because it is the weakest square for black and because the only defender of the square is the black king, and the main target of white is obviously the black king. Same thing for white. The weakest square for white is the f2 pawn for the same reason. The only defender of the square is the white king. Okay, so now let's start. White plays e4, black plays e5. There are two ways for you to do the Scholar's Mate. One is to move the queen to f3 to attack the f7 pawn, and the other one, which is the most aggressive, is queen to h5, which also attacks f7 and the e5 pawn. So, normally, black plays knight c6 to defend the e5 pawn. But let me just move back a bit. Sometimes black falls for a basic trap when black plays pawn to g6, thinking that, okay, I don't like your queen there. Let me just shoo it away. But black forgets that the e5 pawn is also left hanging. Now, white is forking the black king and the rook. Regardless of what black does, let's just say black plays queen to e7 to protect the king. White will just simply capture the rook, and even though black is able to capture the white pawn on e4, white will just continue by probably playing knight to e2, or even move the king to d1, and white is totally safe and winning, because white just simply took a rook, which is 5 points, okay? So let's go back here. Queen to h5. So you already know that if black plays pawn to g6, it is bad. It is actually wrong. Now, black plays knight to c6, and here goes the move bishop to c4. So let me just move back first. We know that the white queen is aiming at the f7 pawn, but always remember this. The queen can never checkmate alone. The queen always needs a helper. So in the Scholar's Mate, the bishop is usually the helper, or the light square bishop is usually the helper of white. Now, there are already two attackers on the f7 pawn. How does the Scholar's Mate work? Usually, the reason why it works is because black thinks, okay, let me develop my knight and attack the white queen. And black falls for the Scholar's Mate. Queen and bishop battery, and there's no way for the black king to get out of check. Now, let me just try to move back a bit from the start, and let me explain to you guys. The Scholar's Mate is actually not good if black knows how to defend. So this is like a beginner's trap. So e4, e5, queen h5, or queen f3. Oh, let me show you the queen f3 variation first. Okay? This is easier for black to defend because after black plays knight to f6, there'll be no more Scholar's Mate because it is already blocked, right? So let's just show you, or let's just see how it works. For example, black plays something like bishop to c5 randomly, or probably knight c6, but it doesn't really matter because I just want to show you how the Scholar's Mate work if white plays queen to f3. So bishop to c4, and then if black doesn't really pay attention on the f7 square, then there will be a checkmate there. If black plays something like knight c6, there'll be queen f7 or queen 6 f7 mate. Although, just like what I said, it is easier for black to defend queen to f3 because after black plays knight to f6, then the scholar's mate will no longer work because the knight is already blocking the queen's path. Okay? Now, let's try to move back. There is a takeaway here. I am also going to show you the right way for black to defend the scholar's mate. Let me flip the board and let's start. White plays pawn to e4, black plays pawn to e5. Let's play the most aggressive one, the aggressive way to do the scholar's mate, which is queen to h5. We all know that the threat is f7 and also the e5 pawn, right? f7 can be defended later, so let's focus on defending the e5 pawn. White plays bishop to c4, attacking f7, and how do we defend the f7 pawn? Actually, here we can do a little bit of an acting. This is what I did to my dad before. So he was trying to scholars me. So I was like, okay, let me play pawn to g6. Now you can already play pawn to g6 because the knight is already protecting e5 and white will not take it. My dad moved his queen back to f3, still aiming at my pawn on f7. So I was like, okay, let me move my knight to f6. And I already blocked his threat on f7, right? This is the start of the acting because I created a trap for him. So I simply told my dad, oh, I think if you move your queen to b3, you'll be able to attack my f7 pawn. And actually, he fell for it. He moved his queen to b3, and then he was aiming at my f7 pawn. Now, normally, we would try to defend the f7 pawn, right? Probably the best way to defend is to move our queen to e7, so that if the bishop takes, we take, and we just simply win points, right? Because the trade is like the white bishop for our black pawn. But of course, this is a trap. We are not going to defend the f7 pawn. We're going to sacrifice it. So this is what I told my dad. Oh, I blundered. I moved my knight to d4 and then I blundered. I gave away my pawn on f7. And, of course, he took it right away because he knows that it's a check. And I'm forced to move my king to e7. I cannot capture because it's protected by the queen. So I am just forced to move my king to e7. And now my king can no longer castle. But this is the start of white's problem. So my dad is thinking, where should I move my queen? Because my queen should also be protecting the bishop. Oh, by the way, the knight is attacking the queen. That's why white has to move its queen into safety as well as to protect the bishop. If the queen goes to e6, obviously it will be what? Captured. If the queen moves to d5, it will be captured. So the only safe square for the queen is c4 and also to protect the bishop. Here, there's a famous chess tactic called removing of the guard. Since we all know the queen is the only piece defending the bishop, we can just simply kick it out. Pawn to b5, the queen cannot capture, or I mean, if the queen captures the pawn on b5, it's protected by the knight and the queen has to say bye-bye. Here, the white queen has no more ways to defend the bishop, okay? And let me show you the trap that I created. So I simply told my dad, okay, I think you have to move your queen back because I'm also aiming at your c2 pawn. I think the best square for you is to move your queen back to c3. So he moved his queen back to c3. But before we do that, before we discuss the move queen to c3, let me try to move it back. Okay. At some point, white may play queen to c5 check, attacking our king, right? And you may think, oh, let's just simply capture the bishop on f7. Okay, capturing the bishop on f7 is actually not bad. Although, I don't want to give white a chance to take a free pawn. So, instead of capturing the bishop right away, I'll just simply play pawn to d6 first. So I created a chain, and after the queen runs away to safety, probably queen to c3, then that's the time I'm going to capture the bishop on f7. Make sense? Okay, now let's go to the move queen c3, which, of course, I was tricking my dad and he fell for it. He moved his queen to c3. Now it's time for me to capture the free the bishop on f7. Bloop. And here, after I took the bishop, I told my dad, hey, oh, my next threat is to capture your pawn on e4, in which you have to defend it. My dad knows that the best way to defend the pawn is actually using another pawn, which is creating a pawn chain. So he played pawn to d3. It is actually logical. You create a pawn chain, and also you open up your bishop's diagonal, right? Although, in this position, this is one of the worst possible moves you can play. Now, this is the puzzle. How can black win or forcefully win the white queen? I want you to give yourself 2 to 3 minutes, pause your video, and find the chess tactic. Actually, it's a combination of chess tactics. A pin that will lead to a fork. Your timer starts now. All right. The correct move for black is bishop to b4. Bam! Pin. So obviously, if the queen doesn't capture the bishop will capture the queen, right? The queen goes back to d2, the bishop also capture the queen. So here, white takes the bishop because it's a free bishop. So this is what my dad thought. Ha! You blundered. You gave me a free bishop. And I said, oh yeah, they gave me a bishop for free. But I am going to family fork your king, your queen, and your rook. So here the rook doesn't really matter. Because all I want is the white queen. After he moves his king, I took the queen. And after a few moves, he resigned. Okay. So, I hope you guys learned from this video. If you guys learned, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share so we can share the good chess vibe. And until next time, bye bye for now.